All right, next one. How to avoid shoulder injury. I went 23 years of my life without ever having one lifting injury until this past year when I had my shoulder injury. And at least dealing with lifting, I've had literally hundreds of injuries. I've had a ton of surgeries, but none of them had to do with lifting. This was the first one that ever happened, and it did happen on a bench press, surprisingly enough. And a couple reasons. A couple things to prevent injury. Number one, make sure that your row is up to strength on your bench press. Otherwise, you have some serious imbalances going on there that your shoulders are just getting torn apart every single time that you're trying to do something physical and explosive, all right? So make sure that your row numbers are up higher. Number two, be mindful, man, because I was close grip bench pressing. It was 455 pounds, which for me is a serious weight, but it's not a weight that I really was paying that much attention to. It would need to be heavier for me to really have focus on it. It was a busy day at the gym. Nick and I were actually sharing a rack. He was doing floor presses on the front of a cage. I was doing close grip bench presses inside the cage, and it was chaos at the gym. There was too many people there, too much going on. I was trying to fit it in. I was focused on other things. Did a bench press, felt something weird happen, and yeah, I'm still not the same. So make sure your rowing is up to strength. And number two, that will bulletproof your shoulders. But then number two, just make sure that when you're actually lifting, you respect it for what it is, because people hardly ever get hurt on maximal lifts. It's always sub-maximal lifts where you're just not taking it as seriously as you can. So just realize that every single time that you are holding a serious weight above your face and your neck and your everything, is a very serious situation that if things go wrong or if you're distracted, you can get very, very injured. So being mindful would be my number one thing to stop everyone from getting injured. Would be mindful, be smart about your programming, and make sure you're staying balanced as possible with things like rows. Do I need to have a wide grip to move more weight? Absolutely not. I can close grip bench as much as I can regular bench. Currently, I am benching around like 415, 425, both close grip, regular, and Swiss bar, so neutral, semi-supinated grip. It doesn't really matter if you work the muscles that you're supposed to work. You can be just as strong in close grip as you can in a wide grip bench. I completely believe that without a doubt. So no, you need a wide grip bench like you need a kick in the head. Best accessory exercises to reduce shoulder pain when pressing. I've already talked about all variations of row. Those are going to be massively important. I think hanging from a pull-up bar is massively important for overall shoulder health, face pulls, any type of rear delt activation, whether it's doing rows, flies, but be doing a lot of things to balance out your shoulder joint if you're going to be doing a lot of bench pressing, and make sure that your back is stronger than your front. That is the most important thing that I can tell you as far as any of that is going to go. As far as injury prevention, building strength, just make sure that your back is stronger than your front for your entire body. Also consider switching something like a Swiss bar or just grabbing dumbbells and using a neutral grip, keeping your elbows tucked. That's going to take a lot of pain off your shoulders. You'll still be able to do the bench press. It'll be a little bit more tricep dominant. However, that doesn't really matter. Having too strong of triceps is only going to help you in the long run anyway. All right, what are my favorite assistance exercises for mid-range of the bench press? So people will, they give some examples of like off the chest, they like the pause bench press, but they don't have anything for the mid-range. There's a couple things I really like. Number one is bands, because bands help you explode through any sticking point that you possibly have. Doing bands or chains, any sort of accommodating resistance is going to blow through that middle range. Absolutely. Number two, pin presses from that sticking point on the upside. So at first you're just working lockout, right? So you set the bar on top of the pin. The second type of pin press that I want you to do to work that mid-range is have a pin set so that you can take it off your chest, right at chest level, and then a second pin at your sticking point just above that sticking point so that you have two unmoving objects, right? Two static objects, and you're moving the barbell between them. You can push through the bottom of a J-hook. You can do a lot of things on this. But pushing against that as hard as you possibly can for 3 to 5 seconds, like an isometric hold almost, except you're not holding. You are pushing as hard as you possibly can, trying to lift the entire rack off the ground. That's what you're doing. I want you to incorporate both those pin presses as well as some accommodating resistance, whether it be bands or chains, and you'll be shocked at what it will do to the mid-range of your press. Question for people who might not have a lot of plates: how effective would it be to do more dynamic effort days in your training week to counter the lack of plates or maybe a lack of spotters to go heavy? Okay, number one, no, don't. That's not, no. Adding more dynamic effort days into your bench is going to do absolutely nothing to build up your overall 1 rep max unless you have some sort of maximal effort day associated with it. Just doing 50% work a bunch of times isn't going to do well, it's going to make you really good at doing 50%. If I were you, and I'm not because I would have already done this, I would have picked up a band or a pair of bands. A pair of bands is set up so that you could add literally 100, 200, 300 extra pounds of resistance for a couple dollars without any bands on top of adding accommodating resistance, which is going to help your bench press anyway. Or even if you just had one resistance band that you could strap around your back like you were doing a push-up with a band around your back will add resistance. Well, if you have a barbell or dumbbells in your hands with a band around your back that's adding an extra 35 pounds of resistance, then I would be doing that with a band. I would have found a $20 solution to the problem, or would have went to other places and got more weight. And I certainly wouldn't just think doing more reps at 50% is going to make my 1 rep max go up, because it won't. It could absolutely help your technique, and if that's what you choose to do, then I would say become a technician at the bench press if you don't have any heavy weight. But eventually, bro, you're gonna need to bite the bucket, go cut some lawns, wash some cars, do whatever you gotta do to get some spare cash, buy some weights, make it work out, man. If it's a priority in your life, make it happen. If it's not, quit it, because it's not worth half doing. Do skull crushers really help in the bench press? I think they absolutely do if a skull crusher is working your tricep. Most people do skull crushers pretty badly and they're not hitting that much of the tricep, so I would say if you're doing them correctly, absolutely. If you are not doing them correctly, nah. I would stop doing skull crushers if you're screwing them up. Sorry, the camera angle probably changed because I had to plug this thing in. All right, next question comes from Jonas Borg, who said, beginner here, where do I start? Brother, I would tell you to start with my bench press tutorial. I do a 3-part series where I literally lay everything out on the bench press, from the beginning of your setup all the way through the press and how to do it actually correctly, learning leg drive, everything from the beginning. If you could help not getting bad habits by going to a gym and talking to some bro who's going to tell you to do a bunch of things wrong, if you could help not doing that and actually spend the time to just be patient and work your technique and make slow incremental jumps on the way up, but keeping your technique good, I think you'd be shocked at where you could actually get on the bench press. So I would start out with those 3 videos. If you just search my page, Brian Alsruhe bench press, how to, something like that, it'll definitely show up. All right, next question. When I do close grip board press, 2 boards, 9-degree elbow at the bottom, no flares, I feel more on my front delts rather than on my triceps. What do I do wrong? Isn't this supposed to be tricep overloading exercise? Yes, it absolutely is supposed to be a tricep overloading exercise. So a couple things that some people tend to do that I've witnessed on the board press. And again, I'm not a board pressing son of a gun expert, right? So I'm going to give you what I know, but there's probably other people who know a lot more than me. But sometimes when people are bringing their arms down the board press, number one, their arms aren't at a position where they're as tucked as they need to be. Their elbows need to be a little more tucked. If you're flared, then you're absolutely going to be just torquing your shoulder, right? Number two, when you're coming down on the boards, a lot of people hit a mid-zone in their strength arch, like the bar. If you don't, you obviously know about bench pressing if you're doing board press, but for those you do not know, the bar never moves in a straight line, right? It always moves in some sort of curve, especially on the bench press. So for kitty lady, when you were bringing it down, oftentimes on a board press, the board will catch the bar where you were in that strength position, in that strength curve, when you were bringing it down at a position that is not really supported. Normally, if you were moving at speed, there would not be that big of a problem because you just pass right through that. But maybe those boards are stopping you right at a spot where your anterior delt is taking an just enormous amount of pressure that maybe you don't want to be taking. So maybe consider doing it with different boards, or even changing the thickness of the board slightly to see if it just slightly changes the angle of where that bar actually stops, and maybe it won't have so much pressure on your anterior delt. But yes, if you're not feeling that in your triceps, you absolutely need to be, because if not, that's, you just make sure you are. When should people use the board press versus the floor press? Board press, you pretty much need friends. The floor press, you do not. And also, like I was talking about at the beginning of the Q&A, if you are in a position where your sticking point is not exactly where your arms are hitting the deck on a floor press, then you might need to do different things. Or even if your problem is not having your elbows tucked or whatever, floor press is technically a little bit harder to keep your elbows tucked than a board press, just because you have a little bit more range of motion where you can kind of work your lats in and out with a board as opposed to a floor where you're kind of stuck. So if it came down to board press or floor press, I would choose pin press. How do I work around shoulder pain? I feel like you can relate this question heavily. Yes, I absolutely can. Look, I would say don't work around shoulder pain. You need to lean into shoulder pain. You need to lean into the pain of all things, in that you need to figure out why it is painful, and you need to fix the reasons why. Mine is painful because I had surgery and I'm coming back from it, and I'm not healing as fast because of throwing up and everything else. If you are having it after shoulder pain, after shoulder surgery, then I would highly encourage you to be doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. If you're having it just randomly, you need to find out why. So whether that be a technique issue and muscle imbalance issue, a programming issue, or whatever the case may be, figure that out, but lean into the pain. Never ever run from pain, because pain is trying to teach you something that you really need to know. All right, what the heck am I doing wrong if I keep plateauing my bench press even though I can't even lift 1.5 times my body weight? Number one, you're spending time asking people what you're doing wrong rather than working your technique, because if you're working your technique, you would not be stuck at 1.5 times body weight. If your technique is beautiful, which it is not, because no one's technique is beautiful, my friend, they can always improve. That's the whole point of NEVERsate. But let's just go ahead and say that you have some beautiful technique, then you need to drive up your tricep strength or your upper back, your rowing strength, things like that, and you will come right out of that. Or try combining resistance with either bands or chains, and it will absolutely get unstuck. But definitely work technique, dude, because we both know that we could all use a little bit more of that. What is your view on the arch, and do you use much arch in your back and your setup? So I've broken my back twice. I don't have any arch in my bench press, I just don't have the flexibility in my lower back because L3 and L5 have both been completely destroyed. So, I don't know a whole lot about arch, and what I do know, I'm not very good at it. And to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of trying to contort your spine so you can bench press a little bit more weight. I'd rather get stronger in the correct areas so that I can move more weight. However, I'm not a professional powerlifter, and those guys I have utmost respect for, so if they want to do that, I think they should, especially if it starts pushing the limits of the sport further and further. However, I do see why people get upset about it, because being a gymnast is not the same as being strong. I just ordered a shirt from your site. Do you have any idea when it will arrive? No, that is not my site. I am not in charge of t-shirts, guys. I just have input on the design, but whether it is shipped to you, whatever, that is not me. That is the Loyal brand. So if you contact them, they'll let you know. How to remain tight during the whole movement is to stay focused the whole movement, man. If you're not remaining tight, it's because you're doing something wrong. When you start bringing that bar down, you should be thinking of rowing it to your body. You should at no point let gravity take over. You should always be in control of every single second that that bar is in motion, and you should be in charge of every other section of your body, because if you set up correctly, everything should be so locked in and tight and uncomfortable that moving is not even an option, bro. So control what you control, don't control what you can't control, and make sure you're doing everything correct. The best way to remain tight is to never lose tightness in the first place, which means the very first thing you need to do is remain focused. What is the worst thing you can do to try to increase your bench press? I would say probably bench pressing every single day. I'm not a fan of the squat every day, bench press every day, whatever every day. I think that is the stupidest thing possible, because if you're truly giving something the attention and the intensity that it needs to actually have some form of progressive overload, then there is absolutely no way that you'd be able to recover and do it again the next day. The mix between doing too much and not enough is a very strange balance. I will say 99.99% of people that I see out there lifting are not doing enough. Not so much in bench frequency, but in total volume and total weight and total workouts, they're not doing enough. However, there are a small population out there that are just throwing things at the wall, like benching every day, trying to do a lot of things, trying to stay busy instead of productive. And I think that is even more harmful than the people who are not doing enough. I'd rather see people do something that's quality and then recover from it than the people who are just trying to hammer everything all at one time, because those people just become crazy people, frustrated, and they never ever do well. I have a problem keeping my butt on the bench when I push heavier weights. Do I need to reevaluate my form or just build strength to get past it? Okay, number one, you're not using leg drive correctly. I talked about that earlier in the Q&A. So learning leg drive correctly will keep your butt on the bench and will make your bench press go up. So that is number one. I've done a ton of videos on it, so make sure you search Brian Alsruhe leg drive and you'll find some stuff. Number two, yes, man, your technique is wrong because you're sticking power where there shouldn't be power, and that's what's driving your butt off, and you're doing a lot of things that you probably shouldn't be doing. So you need to work your technique, but out of that technique, the most important thing that you're going to want to be focusing on right now probably is leg drive, and then everything else you'll take care of afterward. But right now, if your butt is constantly shooting off that bench, then you're just not using your legs correctly, and watching a couple videos will help you solve that and probably make your bench go up overnight. What is a good fix? Combat elbow flare, something like a slingshot or doubling up a resistance band and wrapping around your arms like it is a ghetto slingshot can do a lot to help keep your elbows in. But honestly, man, lighten up the weight, bring your grip in a little bit, and actually really focus on rowing that bar down your chest as opposed to just being an active or a non-active participant in the motion and just letting gravity take it down to your chest. If you are constantly rowing that thing and trying to bend the bar like it is a horseshoe, your grip is engaged, you're bending the bar, you're keeping your elbows tucked, and you're rowing it towards your chest, then you, by nature, just instinctively, you will tuck your elbows. if no one does a row like this, that's not how we row. When you do a bent over row, you go like this. So tell your brain you're doing nothing but rowing that bar down your chest. You'll automatically keep those elbows a little bit more tucked. But if you do need some extra stimulus, definitely consider doing something like a slingshot or a doubled up resistance band ghetto slingshot to just get that path down until you can have the discipline to do it on your own. How should the bar path of the bench press be? So once you unrack the bar, right, the bar should be kind of over top of your eyes when you unrack it, and let's say you bring it out to over top your chin, neck kind of area. Now, when you bring it down, you're touching to below your nipple line, right? If you brought the bar straight down, you'd literally have to touch it to your neck because that's where your shoulders have that balance point, right? No one is balanced with the bar underneath their pec line, underneath their nipple line. So the bar travels in an arc, man. So it starts above like your neck, it comes down to below your nipple line, and then it goes back up and finishes above your mouth. That is what every single bench press rep does. If you're moving that bar in a straight path, you're leaving a lot of pounds out there, bro. Don't do that. A ton of people are asking about specific injury questions. Guys, here's the deal with specific injury questions. When somebody says, hey man, I was benching and I felt a pop in my shoulder, what's going on? That's basically like me calling up a mechanic and saying, my car made a noise. What is it? I need data, people. But unfortunately, even if I had data, I am no longer helping people when it comes to doing specific medical stuff because there are too many people trying to sue me for trying to help them during doing those things. So I think it's best that if you guys have some sort of catastrophic injury, you feel pop or a thing, and you have continued pain after a couple days, go to the doctor, people. I can't even begin to tell you how much better it is to have an actual x-ray or an MRI of a picture of the actual injury rather than asking someone's opinion on the internet who did not see the event, has no idea what's going on, does not know you from anyone in the world. Guys, if it was that simple, you probably wouldn't be asking me about it because it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't be in any more pain. If you're still in pain, something happened. And if something happened and it's not something as simple as like a spasm muscle or something like that, then you really need to go find out what's going on, because things like torn rotator cuffs, even partial tears, don't get any better on their own. The idea that a rotator cuff just heals itself doesn't happen, people. It's like a rope that somebody cut a little chunk off of, and now it's just slowly unraveling. And every rep that you do, it's a little more unravel, a little more unravel. So I cannot stress enough that if something happens, people, that's why you have medical insurance. And go to the doctor, go get a picture taken, see what's going on. But do not continue to push through that pain if it is a serious, actual acute injury, people. You're not going to get better. Unfortunately, that is what surgery's for. Is there a reason why my bench press with dumbbells is stronger than my bench press with a bar? Isn't it supposed to be the other way around? Yes. If your bench press with dumbbells is heavier than your bench press with barbell, I would probably say it's because you're not spending enough time with the barbell, because in any logical world that doesn't really make sense. Just because the stability that it takes to be locked into one thing, you're going to be stronger and be able to press more weight than it would with two individual things. So yeah, you're definitely doing something wrong. That should not be happening. Elbow pain remedies. A ton of people asked about this, guys. So if you're having pain in your elbows, there's two things I want you to do. Number one, start hanging from a pull-up bar pretty regularly. Just hanging. Don't worry about doing pull-ups. Don't worry about doing anything. Just hang, because the decompression in your elbows is going to do a lot to just help things out a good bit. Secondly, make sure that your rowing muscles are strong as your pressing muscles. Nala. Sorry. And secondly, make sure that your grip strength is actually up to par, guys. If your grip strength is really weak, that's where a lot of people's elbow tendonitis, rip tendonitis comes from. Make sure that you are working your grip to some extent in your workouts. What is your opinion on training the incline and decline to get a stronger bench? I think the incline is very important for a stronger bench press, but more important for a strong overhead press. Incline definitely plays a role, but decline I honestly wouldn't even mess with. I think there are better options out there. I would rather see you do weighted dips than a decline bench press. I haven't seen that really do a ton to help many people. What is your opinion for the Touchcode bench press for powerlifters? Talks about how you got red lighted, but basically you want to know why someone would use a Touchcode bench press. So I think a Touchcode bench press is good for everyone except powerlifters, to be completely honest with you. There's a lot of reasoning out there where people are starting to throw out the idea that powerlifters really shouldn't train anything but singles anyway, because that's how you play, right? So why do a set of 12 squats when you're only doing sets of singles of squats? When really more important for getting that 12 squats, it's going to be just as important to have that walkout, set up everything perfect as possible for a 1 rep maximum as it is being able to do 12 endurance reps, right? So there's a lot of people talking about that as a possibility with powerlifters. Since I am not a powerlifter, I truly believe in building strength and power and total power output, right? So I am a massive fan of touch and go reps. People ask me on the deadlift whether I think touch and go reps are better on the deadlift than dead stop reps, and I say it depends on what you're doing. If you're a powerlifter, I think touch and go because you got to practice like you play. If you are a strongman, you are going to build total upper back strength and power, and you're going to build conditioning and everything else if you're doing touch and go. I feel the same way about bench press. I feel like you will build total mass, total power output. Everything will be better if you're doing touch and go bench press, except if you're going to compete in the pause bench press. What I would do is build up your strength with the touch and go, and then just like everything else, as you get closer to a event or a culminating type of competition, then everything just needs to get more specific to what you're actually going to be tested on. So build your strength outside, doing variations, doing combinating resistance, all kinds of other things. And as you get closer and closer to it, just start doing more and more pause bench press to the point that you can't screw it up that day. What is your least favorite part of benching? And that would be the benching. When I was 15, I thought benching was amazing. And then I grew up a little bit, and yeah, it's my least favorite. All right, guys, last question comes from Maddie Bags, who said, any concern that elbow sleeves move the weight a little bit too much? I suppose that depends on what type of elbow sleeves you're using, man. There's people who have elbow sleeves that have like ratchets and straps and stuff, man. Like, if you're just using a simple sleeve, you might get 5 pounds, maybe, on a super tight, super compressed sleeve, but for the most part, it's a non-issue, bro. I don't know. A lot of people wanted to know about when to use compression cuffs or elbow sleeves or knee sleeves, and that's completely up to you. I'll be honest, keeping the joint warm when you're working out does amazing things for overall health and just sucking less between workouts, like your elbows hurt a little bit less and things like that. So I do encourage it for that, but if you're using it as a crutch to be like, oh, I can bench 10 more pounds with these elbow sleeves, so I'm going to throw them on when I'm going for bench press PRs, I don't ever think crutches are a good idea, so I wouldn't encourage that. But if you're sitting there going, oh, well, it's not really me because there's 5 more pounds on the bench press, I would say that's being a little bit weird as well. I would say, man, you use tools just like you do anywhere else. If your testing matters to you, where you're like, I want to make sure that my 1 rep max is absolutely pure, there is not a knee sleeve on during my 1 rep max bench press, then that's what you do, man. That is your own personal thing. But if you're in a competition and they allow knee sleeves or elbow sleeves, then that's a even playing field, bro. You gotta use what they're giving you. But as far as regular training, I think elbow sleeves can do a ton to help longevity in training, as well as just making you feel a little less beat up all the time. So I would highly encourage that you use them, despite whether you get 5 extra pounds or no extra pounds or whatever out of it, just for the warmth and compression alone. I think they will be worth it. All right, guys, so there you go. Like I said, I'm really trying to make this entire channel just more about the interaction. So, man, that's why I spent so much time answering all of these questions. There were a lot of them. Hopefully, I covered just about every single topic that got asked about. I do believe that I did. So, please, if you guys do have more questions, go ahead, leave them in the comment section down below. But like I said, moving forward, I'm going to be doing another one of the assistants finisher videos on another one of the big 4, and then I'm going to be doing another Q&A. So, guys, I thank you so much. I was so overwhelmed by the response of how many of you asked questions, especially on Instagram, guys. That was completely unexpected, and as you guys saw, I have my phone in my hand, and that was all Instagram. So I was just reading your questions, answering them, and I'm able to get through more questions like that. So I really appreciate you guys doing that. If you are not subscribed to Instagram, make sure you do that, because that's probably where I'm going to be pulling off a lot of these questions. But do not be afraid to leave them down below. I will absolutely see them. Guys, thank you so much for your questions. Thanks for being part of this conversation. I hope some of these answers help you out. Like, I don't always have the right answers. I know that. I know that it conflicts with some other people's things. All I'm telling you guys is what I've learned over my 24 years of experience. Hopefully it will help you guys not make the same mistakes that I made along the way, so you can get to where you want to be faster than I'm getting to where I want to be. But guys, I do really appreciate everything you do to help support the channel. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for everything you do. I will catch up with you later in the week, but until I do, go out and do something amazing with your lives, people. Keep working hard. Be nice to each other. Whew. That's loud talking. And I'll see you then.